Michigan beat Ohio State again for the third straight year in a row. And Ryan Day, you just got to ask yourself, what is it going to take for the Buckeyes to be able to finally turn this rivalry around? Because there was no reason why Ryan Day shouldn't have been able to win this game. Of course, Michigan is just as talented as a team as what Ohio State is, but the fact that this dude got outcoached by Sharon Moore is a problem. You see, the difference in why Michigan won that game and why Ohio State is now having their third straight loss that they have to deal with is because Michigan was way more aggressive and they came out like they wanted it more. And I'm not saying that Ryan Day is a soft coach, but Ohio State, anytime they play Michigan, they just look soft. They just get scared in big moments, it seems like. And Ryan Day is a really good coach. This is one of the best coaches in college football. This dude has never had any more than 2 losses in the season. So, of course, you shouldn't fire this dude. But at the same time, there has to be some changes that has to be made. Because for some reason, when it comes to a mentality standpoint, Jim Harbaugh and the guys in that Michigan locker room, they just are wired differently every time they play Ohio State. Ohio State, they put so much into this offseason of focusing on beating Michigan, and yet Michigan didn't even pay these dudes no mind. They're focused on the national championship. And when you play Michigan, despite them being cheaters and them getting caught cheating, stealing signs, one thing about this team is that when you play them, not only are you about to be in a football game, but you're about to go to war for 60 minutes. These dudes are tough, they're gritty, they're scrappy, they're nasty, and they're flat out mean and physical. And Ohio State, every time they play Michigan, they just lack the same intensity that Michigan has. And I don't know what pregame speech Ryan Day gives these guys before the game, but he may need to go ahead and pay some money to get Ray Lewis in there. Next season when Ohio State plays Michigan, he needs to bring in Ray Lewis to get those boys amped up. Because for some reason, they just don't come out the locker room with a lot of juice when they play Michigan. I mean, when Michigan beat Penn State, Blake Corum's nose was fucking bleeding, bruh. These are warriors. In Ohio State, they don't have this warrior mentality when they play Michigan. Now, Ryan Day is a really good football coach, but there's been a couple of games that I've watched when his team has just got dominated physically and mentally. You remember when they lost to Oregon a couple of years ago when Mario Cristobal was down there in Eugene? Oregon was just more tougher and more rougher and more physical than what Ohio State is. And you see, it's funny because Ohio State fans take so much pride in being wide receiver U. And they're really good at finding good wide receivers and really good cornerbacks. And they do recruit good amount of talent up front on both sides of the football. But for some reason, Michigan up front, it's just a way different animal. It's just way tougher than what Ohio State is. Ohio State, they're more finesse in my opinion. They say styles make fights. Ohio State is really good at going toe-to-toe with teams that aren't able to make them pay for not being as tough as what they need to be up front. When they played Georgia, even though Georgia had a really good defensive line, C.J. Stroud was a good enough quarterback that he was able to give them a shot to win that game. But when they played Michigan, though, and they were able to slow down Ohio State's wide receivers, and this was a game that Ohio State had to win up front, they weren't able to do it. And when you're playing in a conference like Big Ten in the middle of the country, when it gets cold as hell in November, October, and December, you got to be able to handle yourself up front. And Ohio State, they can handle everybody in this conference but Michigan. Michigan just has too much of a warrior mentality. If you ever watched the WWE back in the 90s when it was the WWF, they used to have this wrestler who used to come out super amped up. And I used to love him. Even though I didn't get to watch him when, before I was born, because I was born in 2002, but when I be watching WWF reruns and they put the Ultimate Warrior out there and he's banging on his chest like a gorilla and doing like sit-ups and shit like that, that's the kind of juice that Ohio State needs to have anytime they play Michigan. They need to have that same level of intensity. They don't have that when they play Michigan. For some reason, Michigan is just ready to go to battle. And Ohio State, They just don't have that same mentality when they play Michigan. It's just that they're all about getting these nice receivers, and they do got some really good guys on the defensive line. But Michigan, what they're doing on the offensive line and defensive line and recruiting is obviously something that Ohio State needs to start doing themselves, because this team just lacks the physicality and mentality that it takes to beat a team like Michigan. Michigan was 3 of 3 in fourth down situations. Ohio State didn't go for it on fourth down once. Ohio State was playing from behind ever since Kyle McCord threw that interception early in the game. And once that happened, Ohio State couldn't find a way to get off the field. Meanwhile, Michigan was throwing everything out there to try to win this game. They were running trick plays. J.J. McCarthy was throwing his body on the line. I mean, Michigan just plays like a team that just wants to win. Ohio State, they played that